or Danny Etling, who's obviously played well this season in his own regard, stepping in for Bryce Perkins. It's kind of crazy to see how much this defense has kind of collapsed, especially these last few weeks.
Yeah, I mean,
Got gas.
interest.
TJ's here. James.
I love you guys cut each other off and
Well, I mean, we got it. You know,
leave me with
Take
a
down
really
the
awkward
comments. We
intro
got-
for our guest. Jake, you want to take the comments off so we can make it a little bit bigger so people can
Yeah.
see TJ for at least a little bit
Good
while he's
call.
here. TJ,
Sorry to
I know it's
invade,
been a long
fellas.
time.
I apologize.
No, you're good, man. You're right on time. I appreciate you joining us today. How's it going, man?
Fantastic. Just a good day of game planning, getting ready for the Birmingham Stallions. Always a pleasure playing them.
Yeah, we appreciate you joining the show. It's been a long time in the making. I know we've kind of gone back and forth on it for a while. It's been an interesting season for you guys in Memphis, to say the least. Lots of ups and downs. Obviously, a couple of overtime wins and then several tough losses on the road and at home. What's kind of been your assessment so far this year in Memphis and just where you guys are at?
Yeah, and every season is not about one individual. I think that's the biggest thing. Like it's been a lot of different situations and all that, and obviously with the team and everything. But I think the best thing is that we've all responded to no matter the situation. It has been as players, as coaches, and we've collaborated together. And I think that's the big reason for overtime wins that we've had this year and having that success in overtime. But we've been in every game. There's just a few little things here and there that we have to continue to work on.
Yeah, I think that's kind of been the story of the season, which we've seen in Memphis, where you're so close, but also yet so far, as the saying goes, in some of these phases where, week 2 against DC, you're right there knocking on the door, just can't close things out. Same thing in Houston, week 3. Michigan loss was pretty rough, and the next week you finally get a win against Birmingham. From your perspective, with some of these coaching changes, right? We've seen Jim Turner as a week 1 head coach. You're in there helping calling plays week 1. Ken Wisenhunt comes back for 2 weeks, then he leaves. Jim Turner's back as head coach. Noel Mazzoni takes over as OC. What's that whirlwind been like for you, just trying to manage and function through all of that?
Yeah, and I think that's just harping on what I said in the beginning. A season is never about one person; it's about a team, and the collaboration between our players and everyone adjusting on the fly to the different situations and all that. I mean, I obviously got the opportunity to call plays in week 1, which was a great opportunity for myself. And I only hope that on the staffs that I've been on, I've shown versatility in that regard, that I've been capable of doing a lot of different things. And I think that has kind of echoed into our players in terms of learning different schemes. And because when you do go on to the NFL, all those different things, you're creating a new offense every week. So we all had to adjust as coaches, as players, to the different situations that came about. And I think it was good practice for all of us as we all continue to ascend in our careers.
Yeah, and I'd be curious to get some more insight, from your perspective on where you're at right now with your role with this team, right? Because you're the wide receivers and tight ends coach. Like we talked about week 1, you were helping calling plays, and what does the game day role look like for you, and how do you kind of assess where you're at with that right now?
Yeah, I would say me and Noel, and obviously Coach Turner, JT, we all work together on various things in terms of situations, schematics, going into the game, during the game, and then obviously reviewing the game together and all those different things. So it's really been a combination of a lot of different roles that I've had. And it really just goes back to how things have been kind of unique this year. And I think it's a credit to obviously JT, Coach Turner, and Noel for everybody adjusting, and all of our other coaches. But it's been all over the place. I can tell you that. It's been all over the place.
I can imagine. Speaking of all over the place, I'm going to put the mic all over to Thorne. I know he's got quite a few questions for you as well, as we're battling through today, TJ. We're supposed to have a couple more panelists on, but our guy Ref, who's usually the host, his power is out down in Houston. Our other co-host, Zach, he's on a flight in the middle of who knows where right now. So
I had a power outage last night for 5 hours at where I'm staying, so that sucks.
Yeah, you got to roll with the punches and just keep moving forward, which you're very familiar with down in Memphis.
Yes, we are.
But Thorne, take it away.
Yeah, so looking through your resume, trying to think of questions, I noticed something that I don't know if I've ever even heard of before, which is kind of how you got your start, which is, you were a student assistant at UConn and then became a player and walked on to the team. And
Uh,
you hear of guys in the reverse of like, oh, he's a player back in the roster, comes a student assistant, but I feel like it never happens in reverse. And I was kind of curious what the story behind that was.
Yeah, so it actually happened the other way, but so it was not highly recruited out of high school, and I went to UConn as an equipment manager for the football team, and then I made the team, and all those different things. I unfortunately had a bunch of injuries, which really sucked because you travel all that distance to make the two deep, all those different things, get put on scholarship, all that stuff. So I had 3 bone fractures in 18 months, and one was a really freak shoulder injury, which really should have ended it for me. But I did come back from that, and then I became a student assistant once I was not cleared for my senior year. So I had 3 different roles there. I've had a lot of different roles in my football life, but I
Yeah.
appreciate you, Thorne, doing the research there because no one really asked me that.
It's great. No, I mean the equipment manager to wide receiver pipeline is pretty untapped, I think, in college sports. So, I think that's kind of interesting.
It's really
And
crazy too that in my pro stops as a coach, I've had a teammate on every team. So when I was with the Calgary Stampeders in the CFL, I coached Hergy Mayala, who was literally one of my teammates. He was a wideout with me, and then I go to the Breakers. Hergy came with me briefly before he was released, and then get to the Showboats. I got James Tunstall, who was with us briefly, and then Obi Melanfonwa this year. So I've had a bunch of different teammates that have kind of seen my football life from that point to now. And I think it's really cool that those guys obviously get to see me grow, but I get to see them grow. I also forgot about Vontae Diggs when I was with the Breakers. We were teammates at UConn. I can't believe I forgot Vontae. Hard guy to forget.
I miss
And
Vontae, man. He was such a joy to have in this league, and just always bringing the passion and the energy.
Vontae knows how to bring the heat, man. I'll tell you that. We've had plenty of battles in our days playing. So
yeah, and also like there's just a lot of UConn connections because Coach Horton also coached
yes,
at UConn too. I know. I'm guessing those didn't ever overlap because I think he was
me
later.
yeah, me and Jaron did not overlap, but we have some mutual people. I think Jaron got there in 19, and I graduated fall of 18. So I think we just missed each other.
Yeah. You touched on another thing I wanted to ask about, which is that you've been a coach at the CFL as well as the UFL, which is kind of interesting because I wanted to get your thoughts on the differences of those leagues, kind of compare and contrast. Obviously, there's a huge like difference in you have player restrictions, and obviously the rules are completely different. Just any way you want to take it, I'm just kind of curious what
Yeah,
your perspective that is.
yeah. The player pool in terms of talent is extremely relative. I would say very comparable. Like I could flip a coin and I wouldn't know which league is more or less competitive. They're both extremely competitive leagues with very talented players that at some point in time either progress to the NFL or work to progress to the NFL. So that's probably the first piece. The second piece that I would answer that with is obviously the rules in the CFL are extremely different. Really depends on what kind of offense you're trying to build in the CFL in terms of how you build your team. Now, one of the major rules, and I think probably one of the biggest differences, the line of scrimmage. You have a 1 yard advantage as an offense. So a defensive line has to align 1 yard past the LOS, which again, if you have great offensive linemen and a good running back, you can just run the ball every play. But you only have 3 downs. So you have to think about, okay, we really have to push the ball downfield. So are your receivers going to be fast, twitchy possession guys, or are they going to be burners down the field? Like those are all the different things you have to really think about. I think when you play 11 on 11, you kind of get a basketball team of guys. Okay, we have a jump ball guy. Okay, we have a shifty guy. We have a guy we can do a jet sweep with. So I think it's really all about how you structure your team. And obviously, I'm really biased because I'm an offensive guy. I gave you guys very offensive answers there, but the rules are very different in the CFL. It's a really exciting, fun game. I loved coaching with the Stampeders for 2 years. I coached running backs there, and it was fantastic.
Yeah. And you kind of talked about, NFL looks, and I was kind of curious if you could name, maybe 2, 3 players offense or team as a whole, who are you seeing right now as like, oh, that's a guy who has to be in a camp this fall?
You're asking about the showboats, I'm guessing.
Yeah, specifically.
Yeah, and I think there are a lot of guys that are capable on our team of that because we have so many players that already have that experience. I'm not going to pinpoint just one guy, but I do believe that there are guys that are not only performing well in terms of the grade and all that, I guess their valuation, but statistically we have plenty of guys that are impressing. That's all sides of the ball and special teams.
Yeah, I'm doing my own kind of research into all that and trying to give guys grades. And I think, especially because you were there last year, I think it's better this year than it was last year as far as, guys who could potentially go to the next level. And I appreciate the cop out answer of not, picking out guys there. So I'll
I said it
push
at
too
the
hard
very
on that.
beginning, fellas, so you know you know how I'm going to operate.
Yeah, but you also have.
Every person in this team is important, from our video guys, our equipment managers, and our trainers, everybody. And that's the most important thing in this thing. And I think, and you mentioned, and you kind of pulled my heartstrings there, Thorne, with just my experience, and those people are extremely important. So, and obviously our players, our coaches, everything. So I just want to emphasize that it's a collective effort with everybody.
Yeah, as a guy who was just finished being a student assistant and worked in like two different departments, I appreciate that. That gets me excited. I wanted to ask about a guy who's retired in the past year and now is taking on a coaching role in Lee Morris. I was kind of curious. I think he's a really interesting example of opportunity through the UFL where his coaching career kind of got a head start here with the Showboats, and I'm kind of curious what the story behind that all was and how that's been going.
Yeah, and I always knew that Lee wanted to coach when he was done. That it was obviously a collective effort getting Lee here, but that was probably the first thing I thought about. Now, if somebody tells me they want to coach with somebody I played with or a friend, whatever, I kind of archive everybody's name on my contact list. So if the opportunity ever presents itself, hey, we could work together, or one person can help out the other, that you just kind of track those names. And Lee really stood out to me because of I was Lee's coach for 2 years. So when we were with the Breakers, he knew every receiver position. It was extremely impressive, especially in Coach Flip's terminology and everything. Really, really a lot to learn in that offense. Really impressive. Get to the Showboats, obviously year 2 with Coach Flip, the whole deal, and Lee still knowing every spot, all those different things. And Lee was always prepared. Lee took really good care of his body, had great relationships with the people around him. And I was extremely impressed by that. I know I was not the only guy that was impressed with Lee's efforts, but I think we all kind of had a collective feeling that one day Lee would want to coach and that he'd be really good at it. And I appreciate Lee for everything that he's done for our team and everything as a player, as a coach. When I was doing personnel for Flip with the Breakers and the Showboats, Lee made my job really easy, because if we had a single hiccup or injury, Lee could go right in, and he scored touchdowns sometimes just off of subbing, and that was like huge for us. Obviously, getting a big play, manufacturing a big play, but also Lee kind of bailing us out if a guy got tired or got hurt, and those always stood out to me. That happened a few times.
All right, and then my last question here. I'm kind of curious. Obviously, we've talked a lot about this being tumultuous and having a lot of moving parts with the Showboats, and I'm curious if there was any like clear takeaways of whether it's with the Showboats again next year, whatever your next opportunity here is after the season. What are the main takeaways of like things that you've learned, given this season with a lot of things that you haven't had to do before necessarily?
Yeah, I think, and I wouldn't say it's something I necessarily learned this year. I would say, and the way that I'm going to answer this question is, it's something that I've always believed in, is structure will set you free. If you're structured, everyone knows kind of the plan, what's going on, players know, right? All those different things. I think that's what kind of propels any team forward. And obviously we've had a lot of remixes and different things, and we've all adjusted to that. We've found a way to do those different things and be structured and all that stuff. I mean, we never had a player late for a meeting. We didn't have any issues like that. Now we've fallen short on some games, but that's, at the end of the day, it's our job as coaches, players to deliver and have good performances. But in terms of the intangibles and having structure and all those different things will always be the number one thing that propels you going forward. And that's just something that I believe in. That's showboats aside, futures aside of anybody. But if you have structure, you'll have a chance. And we've had a chance in every game this year.
Yeah, kind of speaking of that structure, TJ, I was curious to get your opinion on just some of the offensive struggles this year, to where obviously it's been like we talked about, tumultuous season with coaching changes and quarterback changes, and the offense going through some ups and downs. And how have you kind of how to manage that, and what's kind of your assessment of how the offense has played, and maybe what things you want to see change and improve moving forward?
That's a tough question, James, just because I feel like we haven't really hit our stride as an offense. Now you start in training camp, obviously coach was a system, everything. I become the play caller, so I have some of my own wrinkles. Now again, I was running Coach Wiz's system. We all were. We were operating under that. But again, there's different things you want to do as a play caller. Coach Wiz returns, so we kind of go back to kind of how we started, and then we get Noel, and obviously he has his own wrinkles and those different things. So we haven't really hit our stride. We haven't had like a 4-week sequential sequence of operating with the same terminology, all those different things. So I think that's an incomplete grade of how we're evaluated right now, just because of the rhythm that we haven't hit, just because of all the different changes that have occurred around us.
No, and that's completely fair. Especially, I'm assuming it's pretty frustrating being in those circumstances, especially seeing how well the defense has played throughout large chunks of the season, and having them been able to keep you in games, and then not being able to kind of hold up your side of the bargain offensively. And again, I'm not trying to say that the offense has been it's not. I'm not saying it's your fault, DJ. I guess the point I'm trying to make here is that it's evident the offense has gone through some really tough times this season, which has been unfortunate to see, because there is a lot of talent there. And speaking of that talent, working with Jonathan Adams for what is this, your third straight season with him?
This is my third season with Jonathan Adams, yes.
Having him on a roster, having some of these guys like David Davis is back in action. We've seen Kwame Lassiter make some plays. Those offense as a whole has really had a lot of depth. What have been some of your takeaways from some of these skill position players this year?
Yeah, I think all of them accepted the challenge in terms of the different things that we've all gone through this year. And I think that's the biggest thing that has really kept us in games is everyone's responding. Hey, one guy gets down, someone else is playing a different position. That can go for the O-line, the QBs, everybody. And I know the defensive side of the ball has had some injuries too, and guys are putting in different spots. But everyone's been ready to adjust, ready to work hard, and all those different things. And Jonathan Adams has been great. I've known him for 3 years now. He's been fantastic. I think he's 6th in yards right now. Not that matters, but he's had a really good year. Daywood, obviously coming back from the injury, who I've worked with for 2 years. He's been fantastic. I know you mentioned Kwame as well. Kwame's been fantastic. All those guys have worked their tail off. And I highlight those wideouts just because I work with those guys every day. But it's a collective effort of everyone stepping up in different places all the time. And that's allowed us to be in close games. I think if you look at last year we really struggled with a lot of different things. Not that we haven't struggled this year, but the scores are a lot tighter. And it's coming down to the wire every time, or going to overtime, all those different things. And we've responded in the most clutch situation that this league manufactures, which is overtime. And I think we're 4th, 6th in overtime, which just goes to a collective effort of our offense getting in the zone, hitting pay dirt, and our defense stopping people.
Jake, you've been kind of awfully quiet over there. Obviously, you're a Panthers guy.
No.
Do you have any words or anything for TJ?
I have words, but I do have a question too. Well, not words like Matt, because you guys have gifted us a couple wins, Panthers a couple wins this year, so thank you. But no, I wasn't gonna go there. But James,
I'll let that slide for right now.
Well, what I was gonna say is, it's a question. Like, there's been a lot of flack for the Memphis fan base and kind of not showing out. Do you feel like that's kind of a little bit unfair? Like, especially this past weekend, with the weather delay and the poor showing of the fans. Like, do you guys still feel the support from the fan base? Do you think they kind of undeserved flack criticism?
I think we appreciate any and all of our fans that we have that come out and show out, especially last week with the rain delay. I mean, it was really crazy weather, the whole deal. So like we put our fans first in our minds and in our hearts and all those different things. I mean, you can see the community outreach stuff we do every week when we get down to Memphis, whether it's Coach Turner or some of our players that we highlight in those events. So I think the Memphis community is really important to us, and we want to do well for them.
And I know James has kind of been putting it out there that, relocation and, all the misinformation there, but hopefully that's not the case, because I've liked the just throwing you under the bus. I know. I'm just throwing you under the bus. So hopefully, yeah, that Memphis returns, because I've, love the branding and all that. Obviously love the colors for unbiased reasons. But so, and hopefully you guys go out with a win this weekend. It would make me very happy with that. Potentially seeing Michigan clinching the first seed still, even though that won't end up in a home field advantage, but still that coin flip.
The plan is to get a win, so I can tell you right now we're operating to get a win, as we have every week this year.
TJ, we appreciate you taking the time to join us. Don't want to hold you too much longer. One final question I have for you, from your perspective, working with the wideouts, working with the tight ends, when you're trying to prepare these guys for game day, and there's a different quarterback almost every week, how much does that kind of affect how you operate?
I have said this from the moment I became a coach and really as a player. The quarterback in the game is irrelevant to the skill guys. You have to produce. You have to focus on the chemistry you have with that quarterback no matter what. And you have to execute your job. So obviously any quarterback in any system has a lot on their plate. I mean, every position does. But that is not an excuse to not go out, play hard, and produce, especially from the skill guy perspective, because they have to run a route, they have to adjust to a coverage, they have to perimeter block, all those different things. And that's what they can control, and that's their job.
Right on. TJ, we really appreciate you joining us today. Thank you again for taking the time. Wishing the best of luck heading down the stretch of the rest of the season. Any final comments for the Showboats and Showboats fans as we send you off into the horizon?
Nothing. Thank you guys very much for having me on the show. I know we wanted to do this earlier in the year, and I apologize that it came down to week 10, but it was very important for me to be on the show. And obviously, James, and I haven't met some of you guys, but James, I really appreciate it, and using your platform to highlight the league in a positive way. So thank you.
Absolutely. That's why we do it. TJ, thanks again, and best of luck this weekend.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Go Boats.